I'm GausRoth, and today we're going to look at Raycasts. We need to grab two shapes, open up our build menu, and grab two cylinders and a Raycast Gizmo. One of these cylinders is going to be used for the grabbable, and the other will be used as an indicator so that the player who is grabbing the Raycast object will be able to see the Raycast. So we're going to attach this and try to gauge how big this is going to be. So let's just bring this over here quick. It looks like it's rather large. Jump in. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, it is quite large. Alright, so we're going to grab both of these objects and we're going to scale them down. We're going to go to Attributes and change our scale to 0.02 on the X, 0.02 on the Y. We can leave the Z alone for our cylinder, but we need to adjust this guy, try to make him a cube. And we're going to go 0.02 on the Z also. Okay. And we're just going to go into our make sure our snapping's on and just bring him over here. Now we have a laser pointer. Let's see. It's pretty decent size. Maybe this is a little too long. We can adjust the size of this. Let's say maybe half, so we can go just go 0.1. That's good. Okay. Now we can group this. Open up our group properties panel. We're going to set this to interactive, just grabbable. We don't need physics on it. And we are going to make sure everything is set up right. Looks good. Everything looks fine. We do want a grab lock and anchor, which we can adjust. I kind of want it more like, maybe like that. So if we go in there and we grab it, we can actually aim with it somewhat. Okay, that looks pretty good. In to our group and open up the Raycast panel. This we can have it collide with other players. We can have it collide with an object that is tagged, or we can do both. We're just going to do objects tagged for now, and we're going to just name this target. So any object that is tagged as target will be the object hit, and then we can adjust the Raycast to something not so crazy. We'll just go maybe 5, because it's like 500 meters. So that's pretty far. That's still pretty far. That's way over there. Probably go down to like 100. We want our indicator, which should be about the size of the Raycast. So I'm going to center it, bring it over here, and I'm just going to make this as small as I possibly can. So 0, 0. We can leave that as like 0.01. That way we can actually see it for the time being. This guy is going to move into right there. I want his panel open though, because we're going to have to use it later. So I'll just change this to indicator. And I'm going to create another shape. Doesn't really matter. We'll have, that's good right there. And this one will be a target, so we need to go to Attributes, change the tag, target, and we'll duplicate one here, duplicate one here. This one, we're going to remove the target. So now we have all the objects that we need. We need to create the script for our Raycast, and this is going to go on the actual grabbable. So we'll create our script. We can name it something like Raycast tutorial, maybe. a space in. That's going to drive me insane. So we're going to need a variable, an object variable for our raycast. We'll call it raycast. And we can leave the when world is started in there for now. However, we do need a when object is grabbed. Let's go down to grab events. When object is grabbed by player, we need to start our raycast. So we're going to go over to actions, scroll all the way down to raycast. And we have two events here. We have raycast and raycast with overrides. So the nice thing about raycast with overrides is I wouldn't need this raycast attached here. I could have it below the world and then just put in this object in the origin and then the direction I want it to go here, and it will move it. It'll do it for me. I don't actually have to have the raycast in here. And we'll create another one with that also to demonstrate that. And we'll color this one different color so we know which one it is. So let's go into this group here, and we can take it out. So highlight it, and leaving the group will bring it out of the group. And then this guy can go down here, and we can move our hand back in place, about right there. And we can demonstrate that later. We'll just move this over here for now. So we're going to send a raycast with our raycast gizmo, which is this one. So we need to attach that. I always forget, so it's good to do it when you need to. Raycast tutorial. So we need to go into the group to get our raycast. So we're going to open our group, and we're going to move our hand out of the way. It's always in the way. We're going to open up that. We can grab our raycast, throw it in there, and leave our group. Make sure we don't have anything selected. Leave our group. We can leave that open for now, but we don't need a raycast open anymore. So now, when we grab it, it's going to fire a raycast, but this is only going to fire it once. So if you want it to fire repeatedly, you can put it in a loop that runs like once a second. You could put it on update, which depending on the world, this may not be the best way to do it. But if you throw it in an if statement, so we're going to say Boolean is grabbed, we will set our Boolean. So we've got to go to values. We're going to set our Boolean is grabbed to go back to values, scroll down, grab a Boolean. We're going to set it to true, and then we will put an if statement. If is grabbed, we can fire raycast. So yes, on update is checking if is grabbed is true, but if it's false, it's not going to actually do anything. So now we need a when object is released. So when object is released by player, we can set our Boolean to false, and now it will only call that raycast when we are grabbing it. And it will continue to do so while it's grabbed. We need to do something when it hits something. So we can go to operators, scroll all the way down, and we have get raycast data. Go to events, and we need to check after the raycast. So if raycast data equals, scroll all the way up, get our equal sign, come back down, and we can look at what we can get. So if our raycast data from our raycast equals something, so we have a bunch of options here. We have did hit object, did hit player. Those are Booleans, so true or false. So if it did hit something, not just our targets, but this, or a player, we can do something. So if did hit equals true, I want to move and rotate and scale out our indicator. And we can create another object variable for our indicator. And so I don't forget, we can drag our indicator into that slot now, and we can close our indicator. Now, so for the indicator, so that the player can actually see where the raycast is hitting, so like if I move this cube, you can see that the raycast hits the cube and stops. So we want the indicator to display that raycast. So in order to do that, we need to rotate, move, and scale. So we're going to go over here, we're going to grab a move to, a rotate to, and then a scale to. So our indicator, so let's throw those in there quick before we forget. Go to variables, grab our indicator. So we're going to rotate indicator, move indicator, and scale indicator. So in order to rotate an indicator, we need a vector for it to look at. So we're going to go to operators, go down to vector math, and we're going to get our look at. Look at requires two variables, a forward direction and an up direction. And our forward direction is going to be that direction, or whichever direction the raycast is pointing. And in order to get that, we need a subtract. We're going to grab our get hit data, and it's going to be the hit point. Get hit point from raycast minus position of, so operators, go down to object transform, position of object. We can use self, and then we need to grab a vector, and we'll just call it up with a y1. In order to move our indicator into the right position, we can lerp it. So we're going to go to operators. There it is. We're going to lerp. We're going to lerp from position of self to our hit point. Then we have to give it an alpha, and we can give it something small like 0.05, and we can see how that looks. Now we have to scale it, and in order to scale it, we need to grab a new vector. So we'll go to operators, scroll down to vector math, grab a new vector, and we'll give it two number variables, something small, the smallest that I can go and still see it, and we'll set our z to the hit distance. Okay. Now we'll scale with our grabbables, so it's always going to be starting here, and it's going to end wherever object that I hit. Now notice these are all, so if I kind of go between them a little bit, there's nothing behind it that it's hitting, so it's not adjusting. So like now, that's as far, it keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Now we're not hitting anything, so it's always going to be that long. So we need to add a quick else statement to scale it back down to 0. So what we need to do, so if did hit, so if it does hit something, we're going to scale it, but else, or you could do else if, just to be a little more precise. If that is false, if it didn't hit anything, then we can scale it to 0, 0, 0, 0. So now, the moment I'm no longer hitting something, it goes away. Hit something and bam. Now, we have 3 objects here, and 2 of them are tagged as target, which is the object tagged on our raycast. And in order to do something special with those, we can do another check. I'm going to grab an if, throw it in here. So if it did hit, you don't even need the equals true because it's a boolean, so I could actually do this. Did hit object, I could get rid of that. And then did hit, that's saying it's true. And I can do something similar with this else false. I could, instead of checking if it equals false, I could go into operators, throw in a not, and then if not did hit object, so basically it's saying if it's not true, and so now it goes away. It's just a little bit easier to read. If did hit object from Raycast, so if it did, we can change, we can do anything to those objects. So we can set, let's do something simple, we'll just set the color. So we can set object color of the object hit. So object hit returns the object that is getting hit. So we're going to set the object being hit to red. Or, no, let's go green. Let's go green. Before we test it, let's make sure these are all animated, because if they're static, we can't change their colors, and it looks like they're not. So we'll just set them all to animated. Grab our indicator, and the ones that are tagged target are going to turn green. So this one we did not tag it as target, but these two we did. So now that with these turning green and this one is not, the reason for that is you can get the object variable for these objects. You cannot get the object variable for this object. So like if I were to go into the code and put in, let's grab an else. So if it's not did hit object, so it hit something but it's not a tagged object, we could then say set object hit to red. Make sure it's all in there right. And if I were to then reset it, that one will be green, that one will be green. This one does not change because we're not actually getting that object variable. We're only getting the object variables for objects that are tagged target. So we can do a lot with these objects, not so much with this one. Just to recap, we have a grabbable, which has an indicator and a raycast inside the group. Our raycast is set to a raycast distance of 100. It doesn't have to be that high. It all depends on your use case. So like here now it's set to 10, so it's really only this long, which could be helpful if you don't want things very far. Like in AM Dominoes, I have it really low because I don't want it, hitting stuff all the way on the other side of the room. We have our collide with objects tagged to target. Our indicator is set to animated because we are scaling it, moving it, rotating it. And then we have our group, which includes just that cylinder. There's nothing on that cylinder. Under behavior, it's visible, it's collidable, so we can grab it. It's set to interactive grabbable. If it wasn't collidable, that wouldn't work. We did add a grab block and an anchor, but everything else is set to default. We added our raycast tutorial and linked our raycast and indicator, so we can close that. In our tutorial script, we have a couple variables, so let's look at variables. We have our indicator is grabbed and raycast, that is it. Where when object is grabbed by player, we're setting is grabbed to true. When object is released by player, we're setting is grabbed to false. And I am using on update to continuously fire this raycast. Now that is fine in this setting because there isn't anything else going on. Now if you have a lot of things going on, that could be an issue. So you might want to only run it once every couple seconds, or like if it's a shooting game, you might only want to run it when they pull the trigger. So if is grabbed, so this is only running while the player is grabbing the pointer. We're going to fire our raycast. If we hit something, if we hit an object, we're going to check if that object is tagged target. If it is, we're going to color that object green. We'll scroll down a little bit. We are then going to rotate the indicator, whether it hit a tagged object or not. we're going to rotate the indicator, move the indicator, and then scale it. We are rotating, we're using look towards. We're going to get the hit point from the raycast minus position of self. That is our forward direction. And then we're going to use 1 on the Y as our up. Now, for moving, we're going to move our indicator to, we're going to use LARP, and the two variables in LARP is going to be position of self and get hit point from raycast, and we put a 0.5 in our alpha. Scale, we're just going to grab a new vector. We're going to make sure that the X and Y stay at 0, 1, and then our Z is going to be the hit distance from the raycast. So the distance between here and the object. If we don't hit an object, we are going to scale our indicator back down to 0, 0, 0. That way we can't see it. Now there is another way to do this. I'm going to make a duplicate of this script quick. And we're going to call it Raycast Tutorial 2. However, we're not going to use Raycast with Raycast. We are going to use, all the way down, Raycast with Override. Now what this means is we can tell the raycast to shoot from a certain position and in a certain direction. And we already kind of have that information down here. We're going to use position of self as our origin, and in order to grab our direction, we're going to use the forward direction under object transform. We'll grab the forward direction of object. So we're going to start it from the position, and then we're going to shoot it in the forward direction. Now this allows us to, so we're just going to attach Raycast 2, move you over there, move you over here. I don't know if I have an indicator. I do not, so we're going to have to grab another one. And I'm just going to duplicate this guy. I'm just going to scale him down all the way, really small. As long as it's smaller than this one, our script will adjust for us. Then I can just throw him in there. This could be our indicator. Just make sure I unselect everything before I exit out of the script. Make sure it's still in there. And then, oh, I don't want to do that. We need to move this dude back, right about there, and now we need our raycast. And our raycast will go in there. All right, everything is hooked up. So I grab the red one, and I'm just having a hard time kind of staying inside. And we could try by, let's say, setting this to a local script, save, reset. Now if I grab it with this hand, grab it with this hand, it does look better because it's local. To me, it looks good. To somebody else, it probably won't look this good. So now we have two scripts, we got 2 pointers, 2 raycasts, doing the exact same thing. They look the exact same. However, I can duplicate this. I only need one. But see, if I have, I'm just going to put this up here. Now if I grab this guy, it works. If I grab this guy, it works. Now if I grab them at the same time, I was going to say it might not work. It does. It does work. I was wondering if they were going to start fighting, but no, it works pretty good. And there's only one raycast with this, and the object is, it was above the player, but these don't have raycasts inside them. We're using with overrides, which allows us to basically have 2 raycasts firing for 2 objects. And that's pretty much all I have for Raycast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about this video, please let me know in the comment section below. And if you have any suggestions for a future tutorial, again, let me know in the comment section. If you liked the video or you learned something today, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you are notified of any future videos. Have a good one.